Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today we're going to be going over on one that I've actually already covered. And the reason why is because it really needs to be redone. And they've changed a lot about the way this ability works, and so my previous advice isn't really 100% accurate. And that is the Blade Fury ability. Also, we're going to be going over the other two abilities, which is Blade Sentinel and Blade Shield, but in separate videos. Well, honestly, because they're just so much different than other abilities. First off, let's cover the basics of Blade Fury. How does Blade Fury work? Well, it's very simple. It has a casted channel ability. It channels, and when it channels, as you can clearly see here, it continues to channel, and it does not stop. If you get hit, it actually causes the ability to stop, and then you have to recast from the beginning. There is a little bit of a delay at the beginning of the cast, if you haven't noticed. How does it actually deal damage? Well, it does it's 1 every 6 frames. So it will continue to fire blades as long as you have mana. And as you can clearly see, it does pretty good damage. I can pretty much just one-shot most of these guys with relative ease using Blade Fury. But that's because this is a Blade Fury assassin. Now, this Blade Fury assassin is actually set up as a old-style Blade Fury assassin. This was before they changed everything, and I kind of just swapped everything over. Didn't really update her with, like, the you know, best way to set one up. But as you'll be able to clearly see, she really doesn't have any trouble killing pretty much anything, even in the old setup. So while there is a new setup, and you can take advantage of that, the old setup still works just fine. You can pretty much just murder everything with it. It just is a matter of getting the most out of it, and that's really the reason why I'm setting up this character, well, going over this again, because it needs to be updated. So first off, let's pull up the Amazon basin page, and let's talk about this real quick. Mind your eyes, I'm going to blind you guys. So first off, character screen does not display 3/8 attack damage when using two-handed weapons. This is something that you really have to know. Blade Fury does not work well with two-handed weapons. You basically get all that damage cut in half, and you get the penalty on top. Which basically means that two-handed weapons are like among the worst options available to use for a Blade Fury Sin. And it really comes down to the fact that, well, you basically get none of the advantages of having a two-handed weapon, and you lose a shield. So there's no reason to use two-handed weapons on a Blade Fury Sin unless you just don't have anything else to use, and it just happens to be the best weapon that you have available to you at that particular time. But a one-handed weapon with a shield is always going to be better, or two claws is always going to be better than a two-handed weapon, so keep that in mind. Another very important thing that I need to talk about right off the bat is that grief does not work with Blade Fury. So if you had that thought in your head, just throw it away. It doesn't work. Move on. Move on. Also, attack speed does not change the attack speed of the ability. So this is also very important, and something that needs to be mentioned right away is that you cannot increase the attack rate of Blade Fury with any kind of attack speed increase, fanaticism, burst of speed. None of it has any effect on Blade Fury. It will always be at the exact speed that it is, nothing more, nothing less, which is, you know, it's kind of important. Also, another thing that I would highly recommend is that when you're using the ability, you use the shift key and you hold down to fire, as opposed to clicking on the monster. The reason for this is because if you click on a monster and then you kill said monster, you will stop attacking, as you can clearly see. However, if you hold shift and you click not on the monster, you will not stop attacking, even though the monster dies. So the difference with this is that if you click on a monster, it immediately stops attacking as soon as that monster dies, which can sometimes get you into trouble. Whereas if you hold down the shift key, you will just continually fire, as long as you're not interrupted, in whatever direction you're holding the button down. And it's way better to do it that way than the latter. As you can see, I just ripped a shank in his butthole. Absolutely love this this ability. Now, what has changed to make me remake the video on Blade Fury? Well, The most important thing that's changed is the synergies that were added. So if you actually go look at the skills now, they actually have synergies on them for the first time ever. They're all the same. It's 10% increased damage per level, 10% increased damage per level, 10% increased damage per level. Now, what does this actually do? Well, it's a massive bump in damage. So the skill itself used to give a mediocre, moderate little bonus damage. It wasn't anything too super special, but if we go over and we take a look at Amazon Basin, you'll see that it says here minimum damage and maximum damage. So the ability is actually giving you min and max damage. And the 800% synergy that you get, the 10% and the 10% that comes from Blade Sentinel and Blade Shield, increases that to 675. To put that in perspective, Grief gives you what, like 400 cap, min and max? Blade Fury gives you 675 min and max. More than what Grief gives you. And it's probably why Grief doesn't work with this particular ability, because if it did, then it would just be an even more insane number, like 1,075 min and max damage. This means that it, even without a weapon, even with no equipment whatsoever, you're still getting a massive amount of min and max. In fact, I could just simply take off like Fortitude, Phoenix. I could dump all my charms out of my inventory real quick just for lulz. And after doing that, you can see that I'm still sitting at a massive 666 to 678 min and max with no weapon equipped. What's also very important about this, and the reason why things have changed, is that that min and max damage that you get from the actual ability is not subject to the weapon penalty. Notice that I have a 75% weapon penalty, which means 25% of my damage is taken away. And that 678, still there. Hasn't changed, right? That's because any damage that's added by the ability itself, like Blade Sentinel, Blade Fury, and Blade Shield, to itself is not subject to that penalty. And so things like this, you know, max damage charm are subject to the penalty, and that's okay. But you know, we're going a step further than this, and we're looking at it like, okay, well, they just gave us this massive synergy bonus. We can get a massive amount of damage increase through, you know, items. We have a lot of various items that we can potentially put on, and this allows us to get a huge bonus. Right? So then when you put on an item, you know, like these max damage charms, now I'm up to 730 to 876. I throw on something like Fortitude, I'm now up to 1,000. I can throw on something like Phoenix, and now I'm up to 1,100. And that's before adding in an actual weapon, which can add to that total as well. So, for instance, with the Death Etnax, it has 228 to 461, you know, min and max. Well, I'll throw that on, and now suddenly I'm sitting at 2,326 to 4,449, which is massive, right? I mean, for like a per hit, that's pretty good, especially considering I attack once every 6 frames, and I can also apply other effects like Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike, which can bring that up even further, because it's primarily physical damage. Going back to the sheet here, you can also see that I can apply poison damage. I can apply life and mana leech. When you're using 2 claws, it's important to note that it only uses the primary claw. Claw mastery does not work. The AR does not work with the Blade Fury. However, for some reason or another, the rest of it does. So, like, you still get the critical strike bonus. You just don't get the attack rating bonus. And this is a list of all the things that do work with Blade Fury. So target's defense, ignores target's defense, crushing blow, negative enemy resistance, chance on cast on striking, not on attack, by the way. Slows target, freezes target, hits blinds target, hit causes monster to flee, knockback, prevents monster to heal, open wounds, life stolen from hit, mana stolen from hit, life after kill, mana after kill, chance to cast when you kill an enemy, slain monsters rest in peace, reanimate as returned, and adds X to Y damage. So this is not the same as Grief. Adds X to Y damage would be something like War Travelers. War Travelers has a really nice bonus of min and max, which is not the same thing as Grief at all, and does work with this. So that's also another way that you can add it a little bit more. The character screen also adds Blade Fury skill damage after the percent damage is applied, when it actually is added before. So this is also something that doesn't, the lying character screen, right? So the 600 and some odd here is technically on the screen, on this character screen, added before, or sorry, after the Fortitude, for instance. However, when it's actually calculated, it is actually calculated as if it was added before the percent damage applied. And this means that you do actually get the bonus, even though the screen doesn't display the bonus. I think that's pretty much it so far. Now, how does this change the way that you build your character? Well, in the past, you would focus on getting as much damage as you possibly could, physical damage-wise, like, for instance, max damage charms and things like that. However, adding in plus the skills actually has a much larger effect than it did in the past. To give you an example of this, let me see if I can throw on some plus to skills here real quick and show you. I got a soldier just sitting around somewhere all willy-nilly. No willy-nilly Soj. Got Shadow Disciplines. Those aren't going to help me. Let's just take our torch off, and we'll use that as an example. All right, so right now we're getting 665 to 675 min-max from our Blade Fury. If we take off our torch, we're going to go down by 3 skills, and that's going to bring us to 545 to 555. Notice that plus 3 skills brought us up nearly 100, actually more than 100, min and max. We went from 555 to 665, right? So 675. So that's 120 minimum damage and maximum damage that we gained for plus 3 skills, which could be divided out so we could figure out how much it is per point, right? So let's 120 divided by 3. So each plus to skill is getting us about 40 min and max damage. Not just min, not just max, but min and max. Which means that things like plus 10 max damage sharp grand charms are no longer the best option. Instead, you want plus traps, because plus traps is going to give you plus 1 to skills, and plus 1 to skills is going to give you 40 min and 40 max, which is going to be far greater than what you're getting with a sharp grand charm. On top of this, and this is important, the sharp grand charm has a damage penalty applied to it. So when you put this sharp grand charm on, you're not getting the 10, you're getting 7.5. When you put plus 1 skills on your character, you are getting the 40, the full 40, because this min-max damage is not being penalized, but this maximum damage here is being penalized. And that's basically the way that the whole thing has changed. The synergy bonuses that they added for Blade Fury have absolutely dramatically changed the way that you would want your abilities kind of like split up here. Plus the skills can have a much more massive effect than in the past, and so adding in plus the skills anywhere you possibly can be a huge boon to the amount of damage that you can get. For instance, instead of running String of Ears, you might want to run, say, the plus 1 skill belt, because that's an additional 40 damage that you can add right there. On top of that, you could also potentially use a plus 2 skill armor, plus 2 skill shield, or plus 2 skill helmet. In the weapon slot, Death at Nax and the Flesher Perfang Knife used to be top tier. Like, they were literally like among the best weapons that you could possibly use. And they're still really good. They're still really good. But plus skills is now king. So having plus skills and the damage is going to be better. One of the best options that you can get at this point is also an extremely rare option, which is an Ethereal Claw with plus 3 Blade Fury on it. And if you can manage it, plus 3 traps or plus 2 traps, depending on if it's a rare or a blue claw. And the reason why you want this, and also in the ethereal form, is because Blade Fury doesn't burn durability. and this is something that I may have forgotten to mention, but we're mentioning it now. Blade Fury itself does not burn durability on items, so it does not have to be repairs durability. It does not have to be indestructible. It only has to be ethereal. So you get a massive damage bump there, and then you also get the +3 Blade Fury. And as we just discovered, +3 Blade Fury is an additional 120 minimum damage and 120 maximum damage onto the physical side of the equation. So massive, massive, massive amounts of damage that you can add by having something like this. With a perfect claw of this type, you could potentially have +5, which is going to be even more. So that's 120, 160, and then 200. That's like 200 min, 200 max just for having +5 skills on your claw. These options, Death at Nax and Flesh Ripper Fang Knife, are still very effective options. In fact, Flesh Ripper Fang Knife is absolutely amazing, whether you Zod it or not, because you can get that massive -75% or -50% target's defense. So if you Zod it, you've got a -50% target's defense, 25% crushing blow, 33% deadly strike, 50% open wounds, prevent monster heal, slowest target. If you don't Zod it, you can socket it anyway and throw an Eth rune at it, bring that 50% negative target's defense up to 75% negative target's defense, making it much, 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 much easier to actually hit the targets when you want to. Overall, the landscape has changed to trap skillers. And you want as many plus skills as you can get, obviously. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here, and then you get 7, 8, 9 there, and then you get 10. So you can get at least +10 to skills right there, and then you can probably squeeze in some more in other places. It also makes the Angelic Ring Amulet combo a little less lucrative, because if you can get your attack rating from other places, which is preferable, you can potentially add even more damage this way. Obviously, you can get +2 or +3 here, depending on if you get a Trapper. And then you can get another 1 and 2 here using Sojas or Bull Cathos. Bull Cathos probably because you're more of a character that wants Life Leech and so forth and so on. And doing this, you can add in a lot of extra damage. I mean, as we just talked about, if you use a +3 here, 4 and then 5... right? So that's, 40 min-max per point, which is a massive amount of damage that you can add to the character through plus to skills. And this is really the only thing that's changed, is that plus to skills is so much more powerful with this build now that it's less about adding in huge amounts of enhanced damage. It's less about adding in huge amounts of, like Crushing Blow, Open Wounds. I mean, you still want that stuff. You still want Deadly Strike. You still want Open Wounds. You still want Crushing Blow. But now you kind of want to look for options that could potentially allow you to, have your cake and eat it too. Plus the skills and what you're looking for. And the amount of damage that you can pump out with this character, like per hit, is kind of nuts. I still think that one of the main issues is attack rating. And honestly, this option right here is probably the best option in terms of attack rating problems, because it gives you a huge amount of everything that you need, and you can socket it with an Eth rune to get yourself the -75% target's defense, which makes it much, much, much easier to hit things when you don't have to worry about them having any defense to begin with. Granted, without things like the Angelic Ring combo, you can see my attack rating is just absolutely garbage at 3,412. I think that we need a lot more attack rating on this character to really make Blade Fury shine. Kind of been talking my butt off, but if you guys have any questions about this particular ability, how it works, I mean, there's tons of ways you can level up this character. There's tons of ways you can play around with it. There's tons of items in the game that you can use. I recently did a Blade Fury Assassin playthrough on Players 8 using nothing but Clegla's set, which is probably one of the best low-level sets that you can have for this character. Pretty much any ethereal item can work, because obviously it doesn't burn durability, and a lot of the really good ethereal recipes are absolutely great for these. You can use Death, you can use Oath, you can use Breath of the Dying. I mean, there's tons of different potential options for this character. I do believe that Death is one of the better ones, though, because it has much higher damage with no increased attack speed, and because this character doesn't need increased attack speed, it's it's a good option. It still is a very good option, but there are, of course, now better options. Also, another thing that you're going to have to take into account as you build your Blade Fury Assassin is the next skill on the list, which we'll be covering in a minute, which is Blade Sentinel. Blade Sentinel has changed significantly in recent passages and is actually affected by increased attack speed. So when you're choosing an option or a weapon for your Blade Fury Assassin, if you're going to also be utilizing Blade Sentinel, you may want to consider one that's not particularly slow because it will allow you to cast more Blade Sentinels, which is definitely something that you're going to want to do. I think that covers pretty much everything. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me some comments and ask your heart away. I usually reply. And as always, keep watching.